So, my topic for today that I'm going to share is basically some of the habits and traits of Filipinos, basically from my personal experience and from my 6 years stay in Philippines during my college days. So, everybody has made their own videos uh, about traits and habits of Filipinos, but I'm going to share to you based from my perspective. So I'm gonna present first. Bad trait habit is Filipino time. So, based from my experience, the the Filipino time is actually one of the biggest problems that faces Philippines today. So, uh, sometimes when I attend meetings, or I attend like school meeting or school projects, the sometimes I would be there on time and I'm the one who's waiting there, and then let's just say that I'm already there at the exact time. I'm the only one that's there, while my other Filipino classmates, they come an hour or even 2 hours late. So yeah, this is one of the um, traits that happens. It's common with in the Philippine culture. So second part of some of the bad traits that the faces within Filipinos today is when asking for money. Well, I'm not gonna get there, but here's the thing. From my experience, every time when a Filipino friend of mine asks me money, yes, I do give them and I do lend them. But once you already start giving them, they will never pay you back, or they will never refund you, or they will never pay back you the money. For example, it's already been about more than 6 years, and there are still my Filipino friends that still owe me money, and even until now they still hadn't paid me back. So yeah, one of the things that uh, is common in the Philippine culture, especially among the Filipino people, is every time when someone, well, let's say someone goes outside the country or someone goes to a country, and they're gonna ask for souvenirs, or in Filipino they call it Pasalubong. So yeah, they're they always ask for gifts or souvenirs when they say that you're going to the country, or and then when you come back, you are expected to give them pasalubong. Yeah, I used to buy this like souvenirs and gifts for friends, but after realizing now that it was just getting tiring, or there's already enough people I've sent to, then I stopped giving gifts and souvenirs, because if you actually look at it, it's gonna get tiring, or it's like you're buying things more for others than to buy a little bit of things for yourself. So third one, what I'm gonna mention is yes, it is known that um, Filipinos are we Filipinos are very hardworking physically. It is true. But there is actually a point or a dark side of it, that the they are mentally lazy. Well, it is true, because when you do some researches, there is a part of a lazy culture amongst Filipinos, which I'm gonna mention to you my personal experiences as a foreign-born Filipino who studied in Philippines, working with Filipino classmates. So there's a list of what contributes to the lazy culture amongst Filipinos. So there's the manana habit, or which means that we'll just do the project tomorrow. We'll just do it anytime tomorrow, which they have the whole time within today that they can do it. I have experiences of some classmates who I've worked with that had the ability to say, "Oh, we'll just do it tomorrow. Oh, yeah, we'll finish this tomorrow." So yeah, that's one. The procrastination. Yes, there's a part that contributes in the lazy culture of procrastination. Here's my experiences. Most of my classmates, there was a time that my teacher said that we have the whole week to get the project done. So we had the whole week. So my other classmates said, "Oh, we'll do it next week." No, oh yeah, we'll do it next day. Oh, we'll do it the following day, and it ends up that we end up getting the project done at the time of the deadline, at the time that the day before the deadline, which the result is we could have spent the whole week to finish or work on the project. So that's second. Neglect. Yes, they end up neglecting the project that it's almost half finished, or it's just left blank. This is true. I had experience of classworks, group works, that we end up only getting it half finished. And then to the fifth is actually one thing that is common with the Philippine culture is what they call come what may. This contributes to the previous trait I've mentioned about the lazy culture. So it was a contribution from the colonization by the Spaniards. It was to teach them to not to think about future, but just enjoy what is in the present. And it's also one of the things that have to keep the Filipinos ignorant and not to solve them or not to fight them, which there's also a video that has presented that kind of trait, which I will send to the link below. So the fifth trait that I'm about to address here is one of the most touchy things about what happens within the Filipino people or within the Philippine culture, and that is oversensitive or overly sensitive or oversensitivity. So whether you are a Filipino or not, and there are videos in YouTube that criticize the Philippine culture, or whether it's Facebook that you write things criticizing the Filipino culture, there is expectations to receive a lot of defamatory and derogatory words because it's something touchy, and you could say that they're mostly coming from the Filipinos themselves. Like, there are grammars that you should know, is that like there's a differences between all, some, or most. So my experiences is that like I get when I just say some Filipinos or most Filipinos or even all Filipinos, and even though that it means just Filipinos itself, even though if it doesn't mean all, it doesn't mean some, or doesn't even mean most, but just because you say that, you'll receive a lot of backlash that you're generalizing, or you're making a whole statement, which it doesn't really mean that way, because if it's generally a whole, you know that that will mean all. But if we're doing particular about a particular sector of them, it could mean most or some. And there's this violent reaction that like they will take a person, oh, they will take it as whole or generalization, which it's not even a general statement, and even though that it's not. So I had received, this is my experience. So I received this bashing from my other Filipino friends whenever that I open criticisms or some problems that need to be resolved. I get all this backlash and all this negative or defamatory comments that I hate the Philippine culture for saying this, but it's not true. It's one of the things that has to be fixed with in Philippines. And the one thing that is with this oversensitive trait with the Filipinos is that like it's a world thing, but I speak for, since I am a Filipino, that whenever it's the Filipino that makes the jokes about other people, it's okay, but not the other way around. So the eighth habit that I'm going to mention here is it is very common, especially in the metropolitan area, for Filipinos to disobey traffic rules. And this is true, even to my personal observation. This is very true. So there's time that like even though there are no cars passing, but the traffic light is still red, or even though the traffic line says no walk, they'll eventually like disobey and they'll just walk or just run or jaywalking. So if you want to show a good sample or be a good example, just make sure to follow the traffic rules for your own safety and for your own life, because your life can be in danger if you don't follow these street rules or these traffic rules. Like me, you know, every time I walk all the time in Manila, I don't really do what the others do, like the disobeying the traffic lights, disobeying the traffic rules. When it's a red light, and even though there are no cars coming, I stay there. But when it's a go, and I go. So that is for safe. That's my safety advice. I'm sorry, that was the seventh that I mentioned, but there is one thing that in the eighth habit of that embodies within the Philippine culture is their way of barging on elevators, their way of barging on transportations. And there's what I'm gonna list here. So there's times that I have been in elevators, and every time that I'm out of the elevator or when I'm supposed to get out of the elevator, there will be people within the elevator entrance that will just block you, and they will, even though you'll say excuse me, they will not barge to just let you through. And this also happens in the train, that even when the doors are open to your next station, that even though it's already your turn to get out, there are people that are blocking you, and they will not pass through, or they will not make way for you. You'll just have to do it by yourself. So my experiences with being in an elevator and being that I'm in a train, or whether it is, I get these experiences that I'm being blocked on the way, or that I'm being blocked from going out. And this is very true, this is very common, that like there is this bad habit within within the Filipinos and Philippines that like uh, as just a normal person that like they're so close to the elevator door that they have no respect for a person that is trying to get out of the elevator. And this is the same experience that I had even in the condominiums that I was in. My fellow neighbors had no respect to pave way for me to get out the elevator. They just sit there just waiting to get in, or without even thinking that there are people that are even trying to get out the elevator. I think in the for the elevator in the train, as I was mentioning, is that like the I think that you should present good manners to make way for people who are getting out of the elevator or getting out of the train, especially so that they don't have to be bumped into, which is what I do when I'm on the elevator or train. When it's my turn to enter, I just make way for people, not blocking their way. So the 10th, yes, it's the 10th. So the 10th, no, is it 10th? No, number 9. Yes, number 9. So the 9th trait of Filipinos, so what I'm gonna say is resilience. Yes, it is true that they enjoy happiness even at times of calamity, disasters, or economic disasters, or you name it all. But nothing stops them from being happy. But the other side of it, based from Filipino analysts that I've read, the what you believe is actually like a big smile, deep inside is actually like shame, or don't know what to do, so they just accept it. And deep inside them, outside they show that they are happy, but inside them they're miserably upset. But still, it's good to be happy even though at bad times. So the 10th tradition that is within the Filipino people is, yes, friendliness. It is true that the Filipinos are friendly people, even though that there are some who are not nice. But from my experience, I've made a lot of more friends in Philippines, and even those who are my classmates and schoolmates who graduated before me and after me are still in touch with me, and we get to hang out together and have a few couple of drinks. And when it comes to even working in activities, the close friendship is really good, and there are welcoming, warm hospitalities in Filipino houses, just like it's a common thing with Asian households. And even with my classmates' house, there is warm welcoming and for providing free food. And this is what makes the beauty of the Philippine culture. The 11th one I'm going to mention is another tradition, is the family orientation and the strong bondage together. Yes, the Filipinos, just like other in other countries, have this great family orientation. They have strong bondage of family, strong family together, and strong friendship, and strong hanging out together. And this is actually one of my favorite experiences, is the strong friendships, the strong brotherly love that I had an amazing experience with, not only my cousins but even to my friends in Philippines. So another is the 12th one I'm going to tackle on, is there is this culture of tradition of persuasion. Yes, the Filipinos have their way of being persuasive, especially when they beg or when they go begging. There's one video that I'm gonna send the link below, which is by the YouTube channel Dikosh, how they represented how what the face of persuasion. It's like, sige na, sige na, sige na, sige na. And which leads me to number 13 is the persistence. Yes, Filipinos have their own way of being persistent, but what I'm gonna tackle here about the persistence is the street beggars and the homeless kids have their way of being persistent. So even though that you just ignore them, or just even when they beg to you, you ignore them, they'll just keep begging, begging, begging to you until you get agitated, and that's when you start giving to them. So yeah, that is how the street kids, they're very persistent. And when you go to Philippines, if you haven't visited Philippines, expect that you'll have this homeless kids who will be very persistent in begging and asking money from you. Because I had these experiences, I just ignore them, or just keep going when I'm walking, and they come back to me, especially when they tap me. They keep tapping me. And even though I don't have any money with me, I just keep walking until they get tired of me ignoring them and moving on to another person. So my advice is that, like, if you get persisted in being asked or being begged for money, just keep ignoring them. Just keep your eyes off from them, and just if you're walking, just keep moving. So the 14th is a trait that I'm going to tackle. There's a thing called let your yes be yes and let your no be no. So I had this experiences with some of the Filipino friends around me who do not have this understanding. I'll give you an example. When you plan a meeting or you plan to get together about the week before, and they're gonna spend the whole week of thinking what excuse for them to not come to the meeting nor to the gathering. So from my experience, from what has happened to me, I had these experiences that, like, this is gonna happen about 3 days before the meeting event, and within the 3 days they're gonna just keep quiet or just pretend to say yes, and then when the meeting day comes, they're gonna have this excuse like, oh, I cannot come. Which this is one of the crazy habits that will really annoy you if you're not used to this, because this has happened to me too before. Yes, the mentality of giving short notifications too is also one of the problems. But what I'm saying is that, like, when they agree that they're gonna meet up with you, and then that day comes, they're gonna have the excuse, oh, I cannot come, which you could have already notified the host or the person who invited you that you will not be able to come, which that is your responsibility. And this is the irresponsibility that happens even within the cultural mentality. So the 15th cultural trait is the mindset of colonial mentality. So I'm gonna tell you something that it happens within the Philippines. Majority of Filipinos love anything that is foreign rather than to patronize anything that is their own. Yes, this is true. And me, during my days, I usually just buy anything that is locally made rather than anything that is foreign made. And a lot of, not all, but there are, like, majority of the Filipinos that love anything, or when they go to the mall, they go to restaurants or stores or like fast food or cafe places that are foreign rather than their own. And anything that is locally made is pretty much being neglected, while the anything that is imported or foreign is mostly patronized. And I really advise that we should be patronizing what is locally made, no matter what country you are in, whether you are a foreigner or a Filipino. There is a problem that kind of is sensitive, but we have to address this, is the racism and colorism that happens within the Philippine culture. Yes, it is true that not all of the Philippine society is racist, but there's a racist part there that was contributed by the colonial days of both Spain and the United States. So because of this such racism, is that when you go to malls or you go to stores, you, even though that whitening or glutathione products is a strong world market, but in the Philippines, the marketing of whitening and glutathione products is extremely huge, and it contributes to the worst of the racism and colorism in the Philippine society. So the Aboriginals, the Atas, are even being mistreated or heavily discriminated because of their attributions, their indigenous looks, while the white-skinned looking Filipinos are experiencing the high riches, while those with darker skinned are being shamed. And this contributions from this colonial era embodies the legacy that if you're brown skinned, you're pretty much from an impoverished life, while you are lighter skinned, you come from a wealthier life. And this brings down to the fact that most of the judges from this beauty queen contests that select this beauty queen candidates to represent Philippines in the world stage are mostly lighter skinned, or people who do not really have the Southeast Asian look. Because during my days, I was brainwashed that and it kind of went into my mind that I enjoyed the whitening soaps because it will make me look white. But at the time that I realized that there were dangers to these products, I stopped using them. I started to realize that I should be proud of my skin no matter what. That whether you are facing yourself under the sun or you keep using these products, you just have to be proud of your skin. And the thing is that, like, the media is doing a good job in brainwashing the masses that, like, if anything that is whitening skin, oh, that's good, while anything that is darker skin, it's really bad. And it's ironic with the fact that, like, the majority of the Western foreigners who are of Caucasian attributes like to come to Philippines to, get their skin tanned under the sun, while the Filipinos themselves, they love to use these soaps like all the time. And even though that it's not that even though if it's not stormy and they love to cover their skin because they're afraid that their skin gets darker, that they're going to be ashamed. So, as I said, whether you are lighter skin or darker skin, you should be proud of your skin because it's what defines you, and it's what makes you who you are. It's what makes you unique. So there's no way of being ashamed of your skin, no matter the color tone of your skin. I had this experience with two of my African friends. We went to this fountain near Cultural Center of Philippines, where there were street kids that approached us, and they were making fun of my black friends, calling them names, even calling them the N-word. And I didn't had like this personal upset, but I just kind of laughed because they were little kids and they were calling my black friends this derogatory word. So the thing you gotta watch out is that yes, Philippines is welcoming to foreigners, to tourists, but you gotta watch out is that they seem to be welcoming only if you're a Caucasian tourist, but if you're another colored tourist like an African or Indian or another Asian, or even from the Western Asia, Middle Eastern region, like Persian or Arab, it don't matter. You're gonna have a different way of being treated than how an average foreigner, like from a Western country, is treated by the locals. But it doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't happen to all of them. But I'm just saying that there are cases where this happens, but it doesn't really happen all the time. But just keep your eyes open. I had this experience with two of my African friends. We went to this fountain near Cultural Center of Philippines, where there were street kids that approached us, and they were making fun of my black friends, calling them names, even calling them the N-word. And I didn't had like this personal upset, but I just kind of laughed because they were little kids and they were calling my black friends this derogatory word. Another problem in the Philippines that I'm going to tackle, it's going to be my 17th case, that is corruption. Yeah, there is rampant corruption in Philippines, whether it comes from the business sector or the political sector. It's obvious all the time and it's always happening on the news. So one of the problems in Philippines is not just these leaders who are corrupt, it's the people themselves who are supporting these corrupt leaders, and they complain so much about the corruption while they themselves are supporting the politicians who are so corrupt, and there too are diehard staunch supporters of these political candidates. But I also believe is that I think a social and cultural revolution can help change the corrupt system of also the Philippines, as what this guy who goes by the name Mark Nowhere Man presents. Philippines is of course a regressive economy by some economic analysts. While it is true is that like the Philippines is somehow backwards, but even though that they have lots of money thanks to the overseas Filipino workers, but what I think is that like because of this rampant corruption is that like the money that is being flowed by thanks to the contributions by the overseas workers is being misused for other purposes, as what I've mentioned about the corrupt system in Philippines. It is good that the overseas Filipinos are giving their best, and I'm proud of them for that, to contribute for their country. But one of the things that like if ever you ask me that if the Philippines will ever become an economic power or will it become progressive, I personally don't think so, because of this culture that has corrupted the system and has corrupted its people. The 19th trait that I'm going to mention here is one of the most common thing that happens with among the Filipino people is over gossiping or over the gossip. Yes, they are very number one when it comes to gossiping about other people or their friends, and talk behind their backs or gossip about their favorite movie stars and television stars. They gossip about their favorite celebrities as if like there is no tomorrow to talk about it. It's like they have plenty of time. Instead of doing things reproductive, they divert their time to keep gossiping about their favorite celebrities, like time over time over time over time over time. And if you kind of look at how other countries gossip about their favorite celebrities versus the gossips in Philippines, the huge is different, and it's not a good sight to see. Personality politics is actually one of the things that has been common in the Philippine tradition. So it's like their favorite movie star, their favorite television star, their favorite singer, their favorite actor or actress, or their favorite senator or congressman, or even president. So whatever he says or she says, or what he or she does, even though it's bad and it's really bad, or it's a very bad image, or it's a bad reputation, the fans think it's really good. The fans think it's really okay, even though it's really bad. Oh, if it's bad but I can do it, then you can too. And I have observed this a lot, even among some fans who I knew, who are around, and they talk about this, what their favorite celebrity said, and that, oh, it's okay to do it, which even though that's bad, they're gonna do it anyway. Another thing that has been going on with Filipinos is this so-called Filipino pride, or Pinoy pride, or proud to be Pinoy, or proud to be Filipino. Me, myself, I'm not ashamed to be of Filipino heritage. Neither I am proud of my Malayan blood, but I'm just happy to be one, and I'm just grateful that it's okay that I am this, because this is how I was born. But the problem is that, like, in the international scale, whenever there is a celebrity who won in a sports contests or in a show contest, and they're gonna reveal that the mom is Filipino, or the grandma's Filipino, or the nanny is Filipino, and then they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, he's Filipino, and the whole country is gonna, start to go crazy. Like, a Korean movie just won the Oscars this year, and look how the Koreans appreciated it. But if it was in Philippines, it's a different story, and you will obviously see how the fans or the Filipinos would react. Yes, like, example, Schoolings, a Singaporean who beat Michael Phelps in the Brazil Olympics, when the media found out that his caretaker or nanny was a Filipino, the Filipinos started reacting as if like the whole country defeated Michael Phelps, even though that he was a Singaporean, and like the whole crowd didn't beat Phelps, but look how they reacted. But I'm just saying is that, like, yeah, I know if he's whether Filipino or another nationality, you should just, oh, okay, nice, congratulations, but not overdo the pride thing, like, or scream or waste your time talking about it. No, that's not productive. So that is about a total of 21 problems, traits, traditions and the habits of the Filipinos that I presented based from my observation and experiences. I think there is a thing that has to be changed within the culture, and there should be we should we whether we're Filipino or Filipino born overseas or a Filipino living abroad should be a good role model and to change this attitude. What happens with us as Filipinos, and just show that there is change and there are still a lot of things to fight for and change their problems, which I think that we shouldn't be just acting submissive or to allow ourselves to be used. So I think that this message should be of understanding and to look and examine and sit down and to think about